Tomorrow is President's Day, and now that you have an actual president to celebrate, I thought that I might take a few moments to tell you about my own personal experience with this self-same individual gentleman. It must have been about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe even longer, and it wasn't on an automobile assembly line. Matter of fact, it took place exactly 1 block away from this house. I was standing on the street corner. I was attempting to cross the increasingly difficult to traverse Alberta Street when, all of a sudden, well, here, let me just show you. Here is the layout of that sunny afternoon. This is Alberta Street, this is my street, and this X signifies this house. Now then, this X right here represents exactly where I was standing on that fateful afternoon when, all of a sudden, I could hear the wail of sirens in the distance, coming from this direction over here. And what? What is what? This? This is... No. This is not a grassy knoll. This is an empty parking lot. Stupid. When all of a sudden I could hear the wail of sirens and the roar of powerful engines, I looked up just in time to see 2 motorcycle police officers riding in tandem, racing down the middle of the street, just as I was about to step off the curb. They stopped right at this intersection, and I overheard one of the officers saying into his helmet radio, "The route is secure for the vice presidential party to proceed." The 2 of them then proceeded to proceed at full speed down the street that way, and were gone. Next, up came strutting a typical entitled Portland hipster. All attitude and chips on both shoulders. He was about to cross the street when up came yet another motorcycle police officer. He stopped at this corner and planted himself. And the second that that hipster was about to cross that street, he bellowed, "Get back up on that curb!" Because he could. He's a cop. He gets to do things like that. The hipster jumped back up on that curb and froze. And then, after he'd collected himself, he looked around and, reluctantly, but since there was no one else there he could turn to, he turned to me and said, "What was that all about?" I said, "Apparently the vice president is going to come down this street any second now." The hipster took his time with that and eventually said, "Yeah, well, what do I care about the vice president?" Because he was a Portland Rose City hipster. He gets to say something like that. He's supposed to say something like that. Why he wasn't riding around in a recumbent bicycle, I'll never know. Next, sailing down the middle of the street came the presidential limousine. It was a big black roller skate, complete with the national emblem emblazoned on the door. It should be elementary knowledge to all of you that any manner of presidential limousine or any kind of executive staff car must be comprised by the sleek, superlative, streamlined splendor of a Cadillac, or the midnight black austerity of a Mercedes-Benz, resplendent with burnished chrome fixtures, motorcade flags flying in the wind, an elite honor guard, outfitted outfitted in full parade dress uniform, riding on the running boards. Yes, it was a rinky-dink, hokey-pokey, wind-up, clockwork Matchbox original that looked as if it had rolled off the nearest merry-go-round. It, as I say, came sailing up the street, and for just one split second was parallel with where I stood, before it too went racing that-a-way. Seems they were racing up the street to some hippity-dippity, hipster Portland yuppie ice cream parlor. The 5-alarm fire emergency with sirens blaring being that he wanted an ice cream cone. But the fact remains that for that one split second in which I was in perpendicular, parallel, linear alignment with the passenger section of that pseudo-limousine, in which I could see through the window the tall, stately silhouette of the figure of the man who was to be the forthcoming future President of the United States of America. Even if he was seated beside a Secret Service agent for that 1 second, I was a mere 1 degree of separation away from the future president. And the only question which remains, boys and girls, punks and skins, is, what does any of this have to do with Kevin Bacon?